I just said
I don't have no choice. I will have hair jokes. Matter of fact, I'll move those up to this segment.
All right, Vince, the Lakers looking to fill out their roster around LeBron, AD, and Kyle Kuzma. According to reports, they have a strong interest in D'Angelo Russell and plan to meet with him face-to-face when free agency begins. Vince, what are your thoughts on a Russell-Lakers reunion?
I would say if you're D'Angelo Russell, like, what better place is there to go than L.A.? Like, if you want to sort of change the tone on your career as far as what people think of you in that way. He's left with a bad taste in his mouth, but then you got to think about it. He went to Ohio State. LeBron is a big Ohio State basketball supporter. He has a relationship with a lot of those guys. I'm sure they cross paths in a lot of different ways there with the Nike connections and everything. So I'm sure he won't have a problem playing with LeBron and being sort of a younger brother type in that way, just because it'll change the narrative on his career. And I think he did a really good job of that this year in Brooklyn, where although it's in New York, you still don't have to play with the specter of like playing for the Knicks. And he was able to thrive in that situation and being a guy who could really help and propel that team to the playoffs. I'm not sure it makes them a title contender or anything like that, but I think if you're talking about D'Angelo Russell with his max or Kemba Walker with his max, I think you're talking about maybe two comparable type of players maybe at this stage of their careers.
When some of the people question his overall maturity, Vince, would you say this would be the most mature decision as far as going back to the Lakers and being able to face that as far as a narrative, him moving forward?
I don't know if it would necessarily be the most mature decision. I won't say it'll be an immature decision. I think you go wherever, A, the money is best and the situation is best. If that's in Memphis, if that's in Utah, you go there. It doesn't matter. Like going to L.A. to face those demons or whatever the case may be, that's a decision for us to sort of make fun of or talk about. It's good fodder. But for his career, I don't know if necessarily that's the best thing.
I'm going to say it's not the easiest decision. If I have one regret in sports, it's that I couldn't accomplish what I did in Minnesota in Philadelphia. I tell people all the time, Vikings fans have trepidation, nothing against the Vikings. But if you can go to one team, build your career, and have long-term success, you would do it in one place. And I know D'Angelo, he would like to be able to go back there. And you can't right the wrongs, but going back there in the organizations in a different position, the type of leadership they have on the team is totally different. The coaching's different. The front office totally different. So for me, at his max compared to Kemba and Kyrie's max, I think it's a great option. I woke up this morning not thinking that he could be the fourth piece, because I know from an offensive standpoint, you have LeBron at the point, D. Russell at the 2, Kuzma at the 3.
And AD is your big.
AD as the big, the 4 or the 5. You're going to be tough to stop.
Well, you said something really interesting almost in passing there, which is, would adding him make them a title contender? I don't know about that. Do you not think the Lakers, as presently constituted right now, are title contenders?
You have to tell me how they're filling out their roster with Rob Pelinka.
Yeah, so let's assume he does a slightly below league average job at it. So by that I mean, let's just assume, for the sake of argument, they don't get a superstar and they don't get D'Angelo Russell. They had 3 players, one of whom you like a lot. They had Terrence Ross, one of whom you scratch your head a little bit on. I don't know who that would be, but a guy that you think's not a good fit. And they just do an average job of filling out the roster. Where the NBA is going in next year, with the Warriors in total disarray, the Rockets, you reported, in total disarray, with we don't know where Kawhi Leonard's going to go, you don't think LeBron James, Anthony Davis, Kuzma, and call it average roster construction from there on out is already a title contender?
How much faith do you have that it's going to be average roster construction? What has Rob Pelinka shown you besides being gifted Anthony Davis, besides being gifted LeBron James? They didn't come there because of Rob Pelinka. Well, that wasn't shrewd decision making by the Laker front office. That was the Laker brand basically saying, hey, we're in LA, we're the team, we're the marquee franchise in this league. That's why you're going to get Anthony Davis and LeBron.
All right, so I disagree with you partially on the Anthony Davis part, because I understand the narrative right now is the Lakers just drastically overpaid for Anthony Davis. I don't know that you can overpay for a 26-year-old potential league MVP. But here's what the Lakers kept in the Anthony Davis deal. They now have a first-round pick in 3 of the next 4 drafts. I understand people are talking about what could happen in 2025, but in 3 of the next 4 drafts, they have a first-round pick. They kept their most productive young player, and they avoided what Atlanta had to do last night, which is taking on Solomon Hill's contract, and they might still very well have max cap space if they can work out a trade with Atlanta to make this a 3-team deal. So I don't think Rob Pelinka did terribly in that trade, and he got something done the previous regime was unable to do, of which he, of course, is a part in dealing with it at the deadline. Now, to answer your question directly about D'Angelo Russell, I do think Kemba's better. I know Kyrie's better, and Kawhi's on a different plane than all of them. But if you're going to miss on all three of those guys, I think their best option would be Terrence Ross, Darren Collis, and Patrick Beverly, something like that.
Right.
But because I am not certain Rob Pelinka would be able to land all three of those guys, and because we talked earlier, there's going to be teams with a lot of cap space left over, and guys are going to start getting overpaid. I don't think D'Angelo Russell would be a bad option at all. And a top 4 of LeBron, AD, D'Angelo Russell, Kyle Kuzma, plus Kyle Korver is going to come play there for the minimum. JR is going to get bought out in the next week. He might come play there very cheaply. You're going to be able to fill out the rest of your roster otherwise. I think that is not only a contender, I think that is the title favorite.
Well, and just from you talk about roster construction, what we saw out of Pelinka last year, and we'll see what the Nets do. I mean, still a restricted free agent, but for D'Angelo Russell, what does he bring? He can play make. He can play off the ball. He can play on the ball. What does LeBron need to be surrounded by? Shooters. He can shoot the basketball. He understands how to keep a floor balance and spread. He can push tempo. There's a lot of facets to his game, how he plays, that fits very well in with these guys. And I also think, and you said he started to change the narrative of the type of person he is, teammate he is. I know it's not L.A. I was around it every single day. I believe that narrative has been changed. He was beloved by his coaches. He was beloved by his teammates. He was beloved by the fans. I think he has matured in a big way, of which there was a difference of the first year when we went back to Los Angeles and he played the Lakers, and this past season. I think he's grown a lot, and that's a big factor, and I think which would make it easier for him if, in fact, that was a place that he returned
A couple of things I saw, too, because knowing him from Ohio State, you can see the maturity, but I watched him, and I watched him more when he was on the bench. And you could see he had genuine enthusiasm for the other guys when they had success on the court. Now, a tangible thing on the court. Him and one other player had 900 pick and rolls last year. Just imagine him and AD, him and LeBron in a pick and roll. He got 900 examples of it last year from a basketball standpoint of why he would be successful there in the Lakers.
And I think about it like this. I know we tend to remember how it ended in L.A. and how he had to rehabilitate his image, but I'll go back to guys' beginnings. As a number 2 pick, the same things people were saying about Lonzo Ball coming into L.A., your number's going to be in the rafters. You're a perfect fit for the Lakers. You look at D'Angelo's skill set at Ohio State, a skilled passer, a guy who can shoot, a guy who can play make. He doesn't get to the basket as much, but in this league, I don't know how valuable that is. Now, if you can do those two things, he's still a pedigreed, talented guy who would fit into any particular situation.
23 years old.
He's really young, and sometimes when people were talking about kids last night in the draft, judging them when you're 19 and you're 20 and you're putting millions of dollars in your pocket and expecting them not to have sort of pitfalls. Guys get a chance to grow and make mistakes and come back from that, and I'm not a fan of judging guys.
And the guy he had the falling out with isn't exactly the most mature guy in the league himself. It was a Swaggy P. Iggy Azalea situation, wasn't it? I don't know if he had the greatest leadership in that locker room to begin with. Just my 2 cents on that one. Sorry, Swaggy.
No, Vince, we'll see you a little bit later in the show.
Man.
Coming up, it's looking like KD could stay with the Warriors. That's next on First Things First.
Hey,
we're out here arguing for Swaggy P.
I got a text saying, Chris, you're doing